Hi there, today I'm going to be talking to you about how to use the 3-read approach when working with an individual learner to support their reading. This method I have found to be really effective at supporting the learner whilst they're reading and developing their ability to feel more confident when reading aloud. The 3-read approach is split into 3 different sections. So we have the decoding, we have the comprehension, and then we have the fluency and expression. To begin with, you get the text that you're reading, and this can be anything from a short book, a longer book, your Fresh Start module, a poem, any type of text at all. I'm going to use this code book, the Project X, to model the 3-read approach as I go along. So to begin with, it's a great idea just to have a little look through what the story is going to be about and familiarise yourself with this before you read it with the learner. Have a chat with them about the story and introduce the story. So that's where you're focusing on, well, what's the title, who are the author and illustrator, but then also delving a bit deeper, talking about the theme of the story, the main contents of the story. And something that I found to be really useful is to go through the chunk of text that you're going to be reading with the learner and pull out some of the tricky vocabulary and explain it and discuss it with them, supporting them to recognise how to chunk the word, how to decode it, and this will help to make them feel much more confident prior to beginning reading independently. Then you move on to your read 1, and this is where you're encouraging the learner to read and decode independently. So you identify the section of text that you would like them to read. If you're working with a learner who's really lacking in confidence, then I have found it useful to take a turn reading 1 page each, or if it's a child that is really struggling, then you may well want to do a paragraph at a time each. You support them with the decoding as they go, just reminding them how to split up the word, how to use their sound chart to support when they are reading as well. At this point, it can also be quite useful to refer back to a strategies bookmark, which I will attach a picture of on one of the next slides. Once you've completed that, then you move on to your read 2 for comprehension. So this is where you move on to the next section of text and you model reading it yourself. You encourage the learner to track as you're reading as well. This is an opportunity to think aloud as you read and model checking of your understanding of the text. So an example would be, welcome to the micro world. Macro Marvel invented micro world. Invented, oh, that's when you make something and you create it yourself. A micro-sized theme park where you have to shrink to get in. Micro, if you have to shrink to get in, that means you need to be really small. So micro must mean a really small theme park. A theme park is somewhere you go that has lots of rides that you can actually take part in. So refer to words and phrases throughout the text and just illustrate your understanding. What's really important here is to have no assumptions of the learner's prior knowledge or previous experiences. Even if you think they may know a word, it's useful just to give them that quick description. Even if it's an opportunity for overlearning, it's only going to bring benefits to them. Ask questions and then guide them to look for answers once you've finished reading and modelling your comprehension. So these can be a mixture, so looking at literal questions where they can find it from specific sections of the book, but also focusing on the inferential understanding where they have to find the hidden meaning within the text or discuss how a character is feeling. And it's really important to be really specific about the 2 different types of questions so that they are clear. You then ask them to reread the piece of text that you have read and then ask the learner to read on a little bit further, and you discuss and ask questions as you go. The 3rd read is where you're focusing on your fluency and expression. So you use a next chunk of text and you model reading with fluency and expression. As you're reading, it's really useful here to go quite over the top with your expression as characters are talking or something happens in the book, and deliberately pausing when you're modelling the use of punctuation and describing the different types of punctuation that come up. Again, not assuming that they are going to know why punctuation marks are included within the text. It's really good to, when you're talking about your expression and use of expression as you're reading, refer to the motivation of characters, why they may be feeling in a certain way or acting in a certain way, talk about what's happening, talk about how the characters are thinking, and again referring to that inferential understanding so that they are linking that throughout. Then you ask them to either reread part of the text or they can read on further, but you then are looking for them to model what you have just shown them. Once they've done that, you discuss what you've read, you talk about what they've understood based on what they've read, and then at this opportunity, you give them some really high quality feedback. The feedback that you are providing, you need to be really specific about what have they been doing that has went well. Was it in the decoding part of the read one, or was it when they were answering the questions about what had been read? Then give them some really specific feedback of their next step or next steps that you would like them to work on. And these should be things that the learner can work on with independence or with adult support.